All right, we've gone through all the divisions. We have our next guest, Jorge Pajares. He's here to talk about his picks for some of those divisions and the Super Bowl. Jorge, he's a football enthusiast and my former co-host on various sports programs during our time at the University of Hartford. All right, Jorge, thanks for joining us today. How you doing, man?
Thanks, Nick, for having me. So excited to be on your podcast. Been a huge fan since the beginning.
So who do you think is going to win going through some of the divisions this year? Who are the teams that you're really looking for right now?
Well, on the AFC side, I want to go with the Patriots.
Of course.
Only because they just came from the Super Bowl. They are the favorites. But there's a key here that we haven't seen in a long time. Andrew Luck is healthy, and he's throwing a football again. And that is exciting enough. He doesn't even need to get hit yet. He's throwing the ball, and he looks like he's walking and it's exciting stuff for Indianapolis. I'm excited for the Colts. I don't think under Andrew Luck they've gone under 10 wins, so I expect them to go 11-5, win the division. Depending on how Big Ben feels about retiring and how he feels about this season, they might get the 2 seed and get home field behind New England, and I think Andrew Luck might have a breakout year this year. Comeback player of the year, guaranteed.
Wow. Okay, that's some big words there. So do you think it's going to be Patriots and Colts?
I definitely think it's going to be Patriots Colts in the AFC Championship game with properly inflated balls this time.
Patriots will find another way to get past them.
They have to. But this time around, though, I think Andrew Luck, although he's going to make the AFC Championship game, I do see the Patriots advancing to another Super Bowl. Ooh, they're dominating that conference right now, and I would say the Steelers would be their toughest opponent, but I say the Colts only because, again, Andrew Luck's back. Their defense should be more motivated. Andrew Luck coming back is just going to motivate that whole team to play a lot better than it has. Mm-hmm. And Jacoby Brissett, while he did learn under Tom Brady like Jimmy G did, he's not as talented as Garoppolo. And I think the Colts realize that they got the wrong quarterback end.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to be a lot more motivated that their leader's back, and they're going to be so close to beating the Patriots. But it's going to be fun because Andrew Luck's back, and now new rivalries is brewing in the AFC.
So if you have the Colts back on top, then where does that leave the Jaguars?
I think they'll be a wild card team.
Okay.
But I don't see it's the Blake Bortles effect. And gotcha. I think that Blake Bortles is going to come to bite them. And I think them not taking a quarterback in this year's draft and extending Bortles is really going to hurt them. Their defense is rock solid, but I don't see them running the ball 90% of the time on Leonard Fournette. And Chris Ivory barely got any burn in the playoffs this year. So that clearly backfired on the Jaguars coaching staff. And it's just going to be too much for Leonard Fournette to bear. Blake Bortles can't be trusted with the ball in his hand. And for that, I think they're going to have a drop-off. And not to mention, they did get swept by the Titans. The Titans should be better this year. Not good enough to make the playoffs, but better to be able to beat the Jaguars. Deshaun Watson is back as well for Houston, but I don't think they have an offense good enough to get them some wins. So that whole division is, once Andrew Luck's back, I think that whole division is going to shift. Mm-hmm. And the Jaguars are just going to be kicking themselves for giving Blake Bortles a contract extension while Houston and Tennessee continue to improve.
That's fair. We kind of glossed over the Steelers a little bit, but do you see Le'Veon Bell still suiting up for Pittsburgh this year, or is he going to be hanging out at those strip clubs forever?
I think he might suit up late in the season, around maybe week 3. I think he's serious about this holdout now. And whether he may like it or not, the Jets may have the money to pay him this time around. Especially after what he said said, I believe the quote was they'd have to pay me $50 million to go over to play for the Jets. And the Jets will have well over $50 million.
Yeah, they could totally make that work.
So they can totally give them fully guaranteed. We'll give you the Kirk Cousins contract for a running back. It'll be great.
I mean, they gave Sam Darnold a $20 million sign-on bonus. I think they could sign this guy for
just
$50
give
million.
everyone guaranteed money. They have all the salary cap.
What do you have for the NFC, Jorge?
The NFC, I really like Jimmy G in San Francisco.
Okay.
But I'm a bigger fan of that Los Angeles Rams team.
Mm-hmm.
And that team as a whole, the moves they made, I think will definitely move them in the right direction. At least they got playoff experience last year. So now the team knows what it takes to make it to that stage. And now they've added veteran pieces on defense. They retained some offensive players. I think who was the receiver that slips my mind that they traded for? I believe, was it Sammy Watkins?
Who, the Rams?
That the Rams traded for?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
I believe it was, but I think keeping their main offensive weapons intact and together and bring in some veteran leaders on defense is definitely going to help them a lot. I see them repeating as NFC West champions, but I see them going farther into the playoffs. I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to improve the Vikings that much.
Right.
Especially now that they lost their offensive coordinator. I believe Minnesota did lose their offensive coordinator to Philadelphia. Yes. Sorry. But that's going to hurt. And even though they do have a lot of their main offensive pieces intact and signed through 2020, I just don't think Kirk Cousins is going to be that big of a difference that everyone is claiming to be. I think it was really overhyped in the Redskins organization. I think he was more of a Gruden, more of a factor of Gruden's offense and Kyle Shanahan's offense.
Right. That's
where he really excelled, and when Shanahan left, you saw him struggle. So I think they might bite themselves in the back for it.
Jorge, I'm losing you a little bit here. You seem to have cut out.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you're back.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. No, that's all good.
All right, back.
So
sorry about that. But
so who do you see making it to the Super Bowl then from the NFC?
Well, I have Philly and LA in the NFC Championship game.
Okay.
Because I do like Philly and them keeping their defense together, but Carson Wentz, he's going to go back to that MVP level of play.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't see Nick Foles coming back in. I actually might think they trade Nick Foles during the trade deadline, just pushing all their chips in on Carson Wentz, just try to repeat as Super Bowl champs.
Mm-hmm. So you think it's going to be Patriots and Eagles part 2?
It very well could be. I just don't see any other teams that can upset them right now, especially in the AFC. We went over through the Steelers and the Colts, but the NFC, I think, is too young. And Philly right now, I think they're going to embrace the expectations because last year they embraced the underdog, and now they know they're on top, and I think they're going to stay on top for at least one more year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, being in Philly, I think, everybody's still on this high from the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. Whether or not they repeat or even make it back to the game, it's hard to say at this point, but it's not impossible. The Patriots have done it. Seattle went, to back-to-back Super Bowls. I could absolutely see Philly making it back there. So, okay. All right, I like where your head's at.
and it's going to be tougher, obviously, because the NFC East is a lot better. The Giants, adding Saquon Barkley to their offense, are going to be a lot more explosive because that's the one position that they've always needed to succeed is the running back position. When they've won those Super Bowls, they've had Brandon Jacobs and Mala Bradshaw, and that players like that running back position really helps the Giants succeed.
My one problem with the Giants is that they only have one receiver, though. Outside of Odell Beckham, and we saw it last year, when he goes down, that's it. Like, He went down. Shepard went down. Who's their third receiver? I can't remember. But either way, I mean, in one or two games, they lost everybody.
Yeah,
you know?
and that's the big problem with, and that they're hoping that it'll be the Odell and Barkley show, and they won't have to worry about the other receivers. And I believe their tight end Ingram, Alvin Ingram, yes, I think he might make big strides, but again, you can't rely on one or two offensive players to go, especially if Eli Manning has one of those seasons that he seems to always have every other year, where he just throws more interceptions and touchdowns for whatever reason.
Yep.
And it's going to be tough for the Giants, especially with Dallas looking to improve, Philly obviously coming off the Super Bowl, Washington now a little more motivated with Alex Smith. That whole division is going to be tough, but I still see Philly going out on top. And the NFC West, I say I like Jimmy G, but I think he still needs more reps under center as a full regular season starter. He had a nice run at the end of last year after he got his first start, but I don't see San Francisco competing with LA and Arizona.
There's
maybe
just such a
Seattle.
small sample size on Jimmy G. It's hard to trust him at this point.
And it is tough because that team is also very young, because that really was an attempt at a rebuild. It was a quick rebuild now that they have Jimmy Garoppolo on board, but they really wanted to slowly put some pieces together. So I think in the future, San Francisco is going to be a team to be trifled with. But this year, I think they'll be improved, but not enough to make the playoffs and make a big run. Yeah. And Arizona, they have Josh Rosen and they have Sam Bradford, but they're really looking to just rebuild, retool, develop Josh Rosen as much as possible. They know they don't want Sam Bradford starting under center week 1. They want a full 16 games of Josh Rosen under center just to see what he can do. If they can make the playoffs, I don't see it, but if they can, perfect. Every young player needs that playoff experience. Even if they're knocked out in the wild card round, they need that level of, okay, this is what the playoffs is all about. I just don't see that happening for Arizona.
Yeah.
So I see LA in that regard. NFC North, we just glossed over, but I don't see either Minnesota or Green Bay making that big of a splash. There's been reports earlier this year that come out saying Aaron Rodgers isn't a good leader. So I feel that bubble is just about to explode, especially if Aaron Rodgers doesn't get the contract extension that he's looking for. Then that you may see that whole team just blow up, and Aaron Rodgers might be traded or a free agent this coming summer, or the next summer, excuse me, or spring. But it's going to be tough for that whole team. Chicago's still rebuilding, so they're not going to go anywhere. As long as they can build up Mitch Trubisky, build a team around him, that's all their focus is. They're not focused on trying to make a playoff run. They'll be happy going 2-3 wins as long as Mitchell Trubisky shows improvement, the offense shows improvement. That's all they care about. And Detroit may be the odd seed out. They may have a winning record, but it's obviously not going to be good enough being in a division with Aaron Rodgers and the Minnesota Vikings defense. Matt Patricia may improve the defense, but it's not the defense that needs improvement in Detroit. It's Matt Stafford and that offense that needs to come in clutch at the end of quarters, at the end of the fourth quarter, that will help that team improve. While I like Matt Patricia as a head coach, I don't think he was the right hire for Detroit. And the defense can improve, but it's Matt Stafford and that offense that needs the real improvement. And I don't think that's going to happen. Not this year, at least.
Yeah. All right, Jorge. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. That's all the time we have right now for you. But, thanks for coming out, giving us some picks, and we'll definitely be revisiting them throughout the year.
Oh, for sure. Thanks for having me, Nick.
Absolutely. All right, man.
All right, take care.
Hey, did you enjoy that clip? Oh, awesome. I'm glad to hear it. You can hit that subscribe button below. That way you can find out anytime we post a new video. You can find us on Twitter at Sports3x Podcast or email us, sports3xpodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Apple Podcasts. Just type in Sports with Nick Drago. New episodes come out every Sunday night.